This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse.
What's up?
What's up? This is so fun. And people will know by the end that we got to work together. So it'll be even more fun to kind of
we did.
dive deep into this. Dude, is this true? Did you really book your third audition ever at age 13? And it ends up being a 85 million. Is it Jack Frost that was the third audition?
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, okay. All right, hit me.
I want to hear how this goes. Also, I guess even before that, this is something that you wanted to do, right? This wasn't like you're at the mall and somebody was like, come audition for this Michael Keaton movie. This was a plan of action for you to do this.
It was so calculated, like all of this. And in hindsight, especially, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this. Yeah, it's so cool to be here and just hang with you and talk about this industry, and because it's something I know a lot about, after
we're doing it for, we're rounding the corner. We're rounding the corner on that third decade.
I remember running into Eric Balfour at an audition, and he's just like, we don't really know each other too much, but we keep seeing each other. And he's like, you're a lifer, aren't you? And I go, yeah, I'm a lifer. He goes, all right, cool. He's like, you want to run this scene together? I'm playing this role, you playing this role. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Anyway, that's a funny little story.
The one lifer to the lifer. Well, no, it's nice because it's not, I think I say this on the podcast all the time. People are tired of hearing it. It's selection, not rejection. And if you stick here long enough and you actually know what you're doing, AKA like get into some sort of technique. So you're not just going for a job, you're actually going for a career. Once you round the corner, at 10 years, there's a leap, right? At 20 years, I feel like at 20 years, things start to really lay down. Foundation is laid. You're starting to build your house, right? You might even be starting to decorate a little bit. You get, you start rounding that third decade. It's same people. You see the same people. Yeah. Now you're starting to, like I've stepped onto 3 sets in the last month. So grateful. I know half the people on it because I'm cool. At 20 years now, right? Yeah. So, and that's the fun thing. And that's what I think also makes doing this podcast so fun is even though I'm stepping on or you meet new people and then you get to do a deep dive and you're like, damn, that's how they started. And then they had to go around the merry-go-round or then there's their valley. And then, oh gosh, and then Mayor of Kingstown comes and it's so delicious to talk because I think it allows people that are listening. Like right now you're in the mentorship seat is what I call it, the inspiring seat. You get to tell us like where you fell down and where you got back up. So anybody that's listening to this.
A lot of that.
Yeah. And especially where the industry is right now, it's a little cold out there. It's a little frigid. People are panicking, but that happens every cycle. And sometimes where we're unified is at least we're all kind of in that frigidness together. Sometimes you experience the frigid winter by yourself and everybody else is
just on a beach, on a nice, on a nice warm beach.
You're all by yourself.
Soaking it up. Oof.
Everybody.
I've been there a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get into it.
All right. Let's do. You want to do how it started?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll give you the quick little rundown. So was in plays since I was 6 years old, right? I just loved being in plays. I don't know why. It just kind of happened. Yeah. And I'll never forget, my dad taking me to go see Terminator 2 in the movie theater in 92. Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 had just come out. And Edward Furlong is on the back of a mini bike with the dude who was in the guy who played Budnick in Salute Your Shorts. Right. And they're rolling through the streets and it's just like this killer follow cam and You Could Be Mine by Guns N' Roses is playing. And Edward Furlong hacks into an ATM machine and gets money and then they go and they go play in the mall. And I'm just I'm watching this and I'm 6 or 7. I'm just going, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to just have that fun. That just looks so much fun to me. And I love Guns N' Roses.
That you're 6 or 7 and you're going to see Terminator.
Yeah.
We're both parents. So I'm oh, interesting choice, but also rad. It all aligns.
Yeah, there's a funny Instagram page called The Dad, and it's your inappropriate movies you saw at the age of 8 or 9 starter pack, and it's Cliffhanger or a bunch of Stallone and Schwarzenegger movies, and I'm I saw all of those in the theater, And I just remember going with my dad, and it was, yeah, it was really exciting. And I just knew I wanted to be part of cinema in all the ways.
So at this point, are you still in Santa Barbara? Then,
Yeah.
okay, so you get the bug. Are you begging your parents to like throw me out to auditions? Like, how does Jack Frost end up being your third audition? Because it's an $85 million movie. You know, it's not like your first thing's an indie, you know, out the
Yeah.
gate. It's not even an episode of television. It's you're swinging, and sometimes that beginner's luck is what is all the rage. But are you still in Santa Barbara? Are you back? Are you in LA? Are you taking classes?
So I'm in Santa Barbara, and I'm doing mostly summer stock theater during the summers from like 6 to 12. Just so happens that one, like the new kid at school, I was going through like a tough period of time, like fifth grade, sixth grade. Then this new kid comes to school, and like everybody starts giving him a hard time. So we kind of like, bind together, like become, a tight unit, and we become best friends. Still best friends to this day. Our daughters are the same age. We're raising our kids together. He and I just produced a short film together. It's like we're on this whole journey together. But anyways, his dad was Kevin Dobson, who was in Kojak, Knots Landing, and they had moved up to Santa Barbara. And for some reason, Sean, that's my best friend, his mom Susan was like, I think I'm going to start managing kids. I think I'm going to start managing. And she knew that I was an actor, and she's like, Taylor, do you want to go meet an agent and start this? And so I had this opportunity, and one day I'm driving to school with my dad, and he knows the opportunity. He goes, well, do you really want to do this? Do you want to, go down to LA and have an agent? And, it's going to take commitment. It's going to take a lot, And I was like, yeah, let's do this. I know exactly the turn on 192 as driving in from, I just, at the fire station there, any SB looks would know. And so, yeah, we went down one day. It was, my first agent was Bob Preston at Cunningham Escott DePini, CED.
Yeah, CED now.
Yeah.
CEST. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then just to cut it, my first audition was a Starburst commercial. And it was, I remember the line, and I had to say, who's Einstein? Like, that was it. And I'm in this cattle call with like 100 kids. And it's just like, okay, number one, who's Einstein? Number two, who's Einstein? So, and then my second audition was a Nintendo 64 commercial. And then the third audition was Jack Frost, cast by Marcy Liroff.
And you obviously felt comfortable as could be and just nail it. And then now you're on set. Now you're working.
I took a big swing. But
how did you take a big swing? This is what I'm curious about. Especially I love this. You're 12, 13 years old, and you're like, you know what? This time the two commercials didn't land, so I'm going to go for it in this third one.
I just had no idea what I was doing. I just had absolutely no idea. I was just going off pure instincts, so much to the fact where they hired me, but then they were like, well, he's way too green. We like him, but he's way too green. So they introduced me to my coach, who I've, had worked with for 20 years. His name's Andrew McGarrion. So they sent me to a coach to go coach with Andrew. So he would just bring me down to movie size. And because I was so stage. Yeah. Because I was so theater heavy. And, I'm playing the punk rock, shithead bully. And I'm like, what do you mean, dickwad? Like, what do you mean, dickwad? And he was like, okay, now bring it down, bring it down. I'm like, what do you mean, dickwad? And he goes, all right, now, put a little, and I'm like, what do you mean, dickwad? He just kind of shaped
the layers.
Yeah, playing with the layers. And, that like, and then it just kind of skyrocketed after that, or it seemed to feel like it just skyrocketed after that.
Well, that was my question. So as somebody who has a daughter that's very interested in doing this, at this point, then, because you did a couple of shows right after that, Sons of Thunder, Odd Man Out,
The fifth audition I ever had was I booked a pilot. It's not on there, but it was a Tommy Lynch pilot, and he was like The Secret World of Alex Mack. And it's funny, I still talk with Tommy today. I love Tommy. But yeah, that was my fifth audition. I remember Bob calling me up and go, Taylor, if you were a baseball player, do you know your batting average? And I was like, I knew shit about baseball. I was like, I don't know, 50. He's like, 1,000. It would be 1,000. And so he was all pumped up.
I mean, this agent's on, has to be.
I mean, the deal was shit. I mean, I think it was like $5,000 an episode or something. It was like, it wouldn't even have like covered the expenses from, driving from Santa Barbara to LA. It was like, it was crazy. It was a crazy time. I had no idea what I was doing.
So somebody whose batting average is at 1,000, you have to, and especially that formidable, those years of being a teenager and developing, and also being that person that was kind of picked on, ostracized. Now you're like, you've got to be feeling pretty good. I'm curious where the reality of what the business is, not your business, but like what the actual business is. When does that set in? When is it like, when does the batting average settle to more the average, or does it?
It settled pretty quickly. Like, reality kind of set in pretty quickly after that. I think when I was shooting Jack Frost, I was in eighth grade. And so I was kind of back and forth from school, that year. And then, high school. But, I always seemed to balance out, to balance life and work like really well. Like I couldn't have done it if it wasn't for my parents, because I was living in Santa Barbara and I would have to commute into LA, 3-4 times a week. And then my dad suggested, he was like, well, this guy, Andrew, you should probably go and take his class. So every Thursday I would drive from Santa Barbara and I would go to class. And there's a ton of people that Andrew worked with, a ton of people that were in the class. I mean, from like, it was like, Drew worked with like Dakota Fanning, Taylor Lautner, Lily Sobieski. I mean, he was helping develop and I don't want to say develop, but like, for sure.
To develop there's one thing to hit a home run right out the gate. It's another thing to be asked to hit a home run again 2-3 years later. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what helped you do the home run, beginner's luck, right? You have to put in some sort of technique. So you're not doing a job, you're actually building a career.
Absolutely.
A lot of teenagers, a lot of people, just this business alone, I think transitioning from having a dream to then having a job, because then the dream's now starting to, like, you're starting to grasp it, to then having a career. Those are 3 totally different transitional points. And if you don't have a basis of a craft or a study or something, unless your instincts, because I did just talk to Billy this past week, there's certain people that they've learned on the job, right? So they don't actually outsource their studying or getting a technique from somebody else. There are some anomalies, I'm going to say, but I do feel like the foundational work, the technique, will give you a career, will give you that 30 years.
But I would even say that, if they learned on the job, they're still developing. You have to develop, some type of method to fall back on, to move through.
And at this point too, this is for all of the parents that are listening to this too. Are you homeschooling? How are you able to juggle? Like you said you did a great job of balancing life and work. How are you able to do that with going to school in Santa Barbara and then coming into LA multiple times a week?
Yeah. So what was that? So first of all, I was always running the ship. Like I wanted to do it. Like I got a taste of it. Jack Frost was awesome. Like I wanted to continue to do it. Looking back at some points, it's like, I don't even know what was driving me forward. It just felt like it's always meant to be. And that's kind of been continuous throughout my career, even when I've wanted to like quit or something like that. It's just like something's always kind of like pushing me forward, or something happens that, keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always driving the ship, and I went to high school. I had full on high school experience. I went to a smaller private Catholic high school, and so the teachers were willing to work with my situation, and they would give me homework, and I would do my homework in the car as I drove down to LA. I would, get there, cold read, memorize whatever I did. I would somehow balance it, make it happen. But yeah, I was always kind of supported,
Right. Yeah.
from school, from parents, because I was always like, yeah, I want to do it. And that's what I would kind of, implore parents, if their kids are thinking about it, like, let them be their own guide. If they want to do it, give them a shot. If they're sick of doing it, let them cool off. I would say this, though, it's a commitment. It's a commitment for the kids, and it's a commitment for the parents. Mm-hmm. Very much. I mean,
it is.
My mom was in Truckee with me during El Nino 98, and we were in a honey wagon for 8 weeks, like getting snowed on, and just like some days not working. I mean, she gave up like 8 weeks of her life to be, in the freezing snow during Jack Frost. So that's,
she was freezing for you to do Jack Frost.
She was. Yeah, she was.
She was a freeze out.
I love how we're talking about Jack Frost. It's so cool.
I read somewhere that it was your third audition, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Okay, so because you have an exorbitant amount of credits and you have been working for so long, I'm just going to ask versus pointing you to a couple of projects. When I say that one audition,
I love the title of your podcast, because I was thinking as I was getting ready, I was like, there are so many that one audition stories that
I want to hear them all.
Yeah.
I want to hear them all. We want to hear them all. Start us. Rolodex, please. And then I'm going to land us, but I want to hear what comes to mind. Which fun ones were coming to mind for you?
Well, okay. I'm just gonna go straight for like the last one that I had, like Mayor of Kingstown, that one audition.
Great. And before we get there, I want you to touch on a little bit of mental health stuff, because I think with this career, and you've touched on it already a couple of times, where you're like, I'm going to quit. No, I'm not. I'm going to quit. No, I'm not. And I read somewhere that you were like 1 foot in, 1 foot out before this audition comes to you.
Right.
I want to know where the 1 foot out was. Why were you? And I, I do that at least once a year. There's a once a year we're like, that's it. And then I'm like, I'm just kidding. And they're kind of soft emotional pleas, right? So what was the 1 foot out for you?
Well, let's talk about just like the mental health and like the mental work that you need to do as an actor. I think that that's like the most probably, I call it the X factor. I think that the personal development that you do, and everything to do with mindset, I think that that's the X factor. I don't know if everybody does it. I've had to do it. My dad gave me the book Think and Grow Rich when I was 18. That kind of started my journey of like understanding what, knowing exactly what I wanted. It kind of just helped me, develop, develop a mindset, strategy.
What is your X factor?
Well, it's an accumulation of like reading all these inspirational books that allow you to put these practical actions to use, in this industry. I've been in it 20, coming on 27 years, right? There's so much rejection there. There's so much rejection in 27 years that there's so much there's like years of not working and thinking that, you're not going to make it. And like, what the hell am I doing? There's so many times of that. There's so much, attaching your own self-worth to whether you're working or not. Yeah. And I remember so I had read these books and everything, but I remember in 2019 or something, I'd been doing some good work. I'd been doing some really, I'd done some cool shows. I had always been able to keep the lights on and have this as the number one career, grateful. Like that this has always been my job, but times got so tight. Sometimes it's just like, oh, it's just hard to think about. And I know everybody goes through this, but at the same time, I was also developing my craft, and I was like getting to this level where like I felt like, the stuff I was doing was not the level of what I could do. And I just was like kind of stuck in this thing and not really able to like fully, sing,
Yeah. Because sometimes, and I'll speak on it, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. There's some projects where you're like, I'll speak for myself, especially as a woman. I'm only utilized so much, and if I try to bring more to that role, they're like, no. Can you fit in this television container for? I'm like, but I could, okay. And some of those jobs feel, for me, creatively unfulfilling, right? So I had to find the jobs or be in a class, right, that allowed me to really work beyond the container, or find projects that did. And for me, that was hard sometimes until people started seeing stuff. I remember the first couple of things I did, they were like, damn, that was really good. I'm like, that was the first time I got to do something like that. Not that I couldn't have done it 5 or 6 years ago. There's something about that preparation and the opportunity. And I know you work with John Markland, right? You also work, you work with both the Johns, right?
Yeah. John Markland, John Heineman, John Louis. Yeah.
So you were doing all of this work during this time. And were you because for the audience, I think Mayor Kingstown, 9th, 10th pilot or show?
Yeah, it would have been, 10th pilot. Yeah.
And at that point too, you'd done 5 series?
Yeah, all season 1s. I'd never had like multiple seasons until Kingstown.
Yeah. Great projects, box office movies like Texas Chainsaw that like made a ton of money. Like, you were checking off a lot of boxes.
Yep.
So before Mayor, you just weren't, was it that you weren't working, or it wasn't work that you felt like you were able to give everything to?
It was both. Like I was not working. Like the last series I had done was a 12 episode season of a Fox show called APB. And, Mayor, we didn't shoot Mayor until 2021, which is 5 years. So there's kind of like 5 years of floating around doing like a guest, episode of something, and, doing good work, like, good shows, good work, but like not really being able to just like, go full throttle.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is too, is that, you used to be able to kind of support yourself on guest episodic, you do 1 or 2 of those a year. You've got these, not so much now. And like, don't even get me into like the full contract situation. Yeah, it is about residuals and how it's so tough to continue to be an artist when like, your residuals are just decimated.
Completely decimated. I know.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because, it's like, how are you going to commit 100% to something if, you have to take other jobs to pay the bills?
Yep. Exactly that. So before Mayor, if you're willing to say that, because you said you've been lucky and you've been able to support yourself, your number one career, but having not consistently worked for a few years before Mayor, were you doing a side job or were you teaching it?
No, like I had savings. I had, my dad came in, he helped me invest properly. So like, there were certain, things that I had that kind of would, investments that I had that, kind of, you save up and, you weather the storm. Like you need to be frugal with your money. You need to know how to like weather the storm because there was a 2-year period between 2016 and 2018 where I didn't work. And the money that I made on the series was enough to get me through, 2 years.
Well,
right? Like penny pinching.
Yeah. And I think that that's the thing too, that like how I talked about earlier, going from dream to job to career, is at some point in there, you do need to start figuring out how to manage your paychecks and sustain.
Absolutely.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people that were living in their cars, right? And then they get their series and then they spend all their money and then they're back in the car. It's the second series when they're like, okay, wait. Now I know how to do this differently.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of go, or unless you have a dad like yours, thank God, to teach you
I'm
how.
very fortunate. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's hear Mayor's. I wanted the audience to understand where we're coming from so it doesn't feel like third audition and now we're at Mayor's and you're like, everything's been wonderful.
Well, the thing is that like we were touching on it, but there was that period of time, and I remember in like 2019, it had been about 3 years since I had worked. I was coming up to do this. I was going to go to network on this Marvel show. I think it was called Ghost Rider at the time. And I was going to go to network. Like I was like, oh my gosh, it was like my first test in like 3 years. I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I'm really feeling it. And then I go to the audition and it's like the coldest room I had ever been in. And it was just like, it just felt so gross and it felt off. And it just so happens that it had nothing to do with me. It was that time where Marvel was on Netflix. And then it was like that rollover when Marvel was then going to go on to Disney. And so that deal, it was something to do with the deal, if it was going to wind up on Hulu or what. It just, anyways. So I go to this audition and like I'm banking everything on this, right? Because I feel good, like I know the character, and then I don't hear anything the next day, and I'm like, what's going on? Like I killed it, like I crushed that audition. And they go, yeah, it's just not going further. And I just go into like this, oh my God, I can't believe it's not going further. And then an hour later, I hear the show's been totally dissolved. The show's not even happening. The show's dead.
So
and
they were probably all in that room knowing that it was on the precipice of that.
They knew that, but I thought it was me and I thought that I sucked. And it was just like, oh, and it was at that moment. Okay. So it was at that moment that I was like, I cannot attach my self-worth to anything in this industry. I have to know who I am without any of this. I have to stop, they call it the missing tile syndrome. I have to stop focusing on this missing tile in the mosaic of my life and being so pissed off that one piece of tile isn't there. Right. So that's when I started like diving in. I picked up like the first 3 books that I picked up where I started reading Think and Grow Rich Again. I read a book called The Miracle Morning to help me with my habits. And then the third one was called The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. She did The Secret, right?
Yes.
The 28-day gratitude practice. So I just started hitting that. I started writing. I just started like thinking to myself. And then because I needed to step back from being like, oh, I'm Taylor, the actor, into Taylor, I am the human. And so I have this wife and daughter, friends, family, like everything is just so beautiful, like in my life. And here I am, like being depressed over like this one little thing that's not working. My job, like how gross is that? And that was 2019. And then of course, 2020, everything shuts down. But I tell you, because of this work that I did, I was in the middle of COVID going, you know what? I am retired. I am loving life. Like, I don't care. Like, it's vacation time. We're burning it down. I don't know what's happening tomorrow. It was just like, I had totally given up. I was like, I was with family. I was with friends in our little pods, whatever. That stupid thing.
You were like prepared for the world to end. You didn't need anything you were already prepared.
I was the happiest I'd ever been. But then come, the beginning of 2021, I started going, oh shit. It's getting dire. It's getting dire here. And I'm just, I had done like a couple episodes, Animal Kingdom in like late September, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the asshole again. I played the shithead again. I was like, I don't want to play the shithead anymore. This just doesn't feel right. I didn't, it was just kind of like whatever. They paid me nothing. I think it was like,
yep.
They're just paying you as like a day player.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am like 25 years in and getting like paid as a day player. It's like,
yeah. And I'm going to guess, and it might be in the ballpark, but if you do 3 episodes at a day player rate, you could be anywhere from $3,000 up to maybe $6,000. And that's it. It's not like you don't.
It was $8,000 for 2 episodes. I was in 2 episodes of TV and I got paid $4,000 a pop for that. That's like,
And that's
then
it. And then the
20%'s gone, and there's no residuals.
So just for the reality of people that are starting to plan to make this their livelihood, when you see a resume and you're like, oh gosh, how do you make that work for it's not even a month's worth of work, right? So now you're still having to figure out
such a huge misconception, like with, people who aren't in the industry thinking how much money the actors are making. It's like, it's, yeah, we're getting to do something that we love to do, but we are like sacrificing like our souls to like do this thing. But if you do the work and you get your mind right, then you're like, whatever. So anyways, okay. You want to go to Kingstown?
Yes, because I got to read it about 3 months before it hit like the auditions, and it was since reading True Detective, and I love Taylor Sheridan. Who doesn't love Taylor Sheridan? At this point, Taylor Sheridan is Taylor Sheridan. But when you read something like that, it's just so clear. It's so good. It's what everybody wants. Everybody in town is going to be vying for this project.
So leading up to that, I keep getting these roles, and it's like, 12-page audition for, the serial rapist or something. And it's just like all these like really shitty, like bad guy roles, like stuff that just makes my stomach curdle. It's just like, coach that, touches the players and all that, and it's just like I've got a little girl, like I don't want to put something in that's going to live forever. I don't want to do that. But it was just like a consistent flow of these like terrible roles and like just really dark stuff, and I'm just like I can't do this. Like I'm getting paid, what I got, I'm getting paid $8,000 to do 2 episodes of TV, and it was just like,
it's not worth the mental health. Even
it's not worth the mental health. So exactly.
If you want to keep working and that's all that's coming your way, it's like, how do you pivot, right? What power do you have to pivot? How do you empower yourself as an actor? Is like the better question, right?
Well, I was just done. I was like, if this is the way it's going to be, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to do this. And I had made up that decision. I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think I've got 7 months worth of money in the bank. That's it. 7 months. You've got 7 months to figure out what it is. So you better choose something and stick to that, like I've had enough faith at that moment to be like, okay, just hit me with what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Grant me with faith. Move me forward. That's what I'm praying for. I'm praying for faith to move me forward. And then I'm about to call it. And then all of a sudden, Mayor of Kingstown comes into my inbox, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I look at it, and it's Taylor Sheridan. Meanwhile, I didn't want to tell, I had auditioned for Yellowstone going I need this show. I need to be on Yellowstone. So much to the fact where I hadn't even watched Yellowstone because I was so bitter that I had not gotten the show. Like I couldn't even watch Yellowstone. Later, after I got Kingstown, I watched Yellowstone. I was like, this is the best show ever, right? Because I was like, now I can watch the show. But I was so bitter that I hadn't got. But I identified with Taylor's story. I identify with Taylor's story so much, being a hard worker, just an actor slugging it out in Hollywood, and then it not going right. And so he just turns around and he starts to write, and then bang, Sicario, Hell or High Water, Wind River, everything, like all those projects, were everything that I ever wanted to do. I was like, this is the guy. I knew that was the guy since Sicario. So 2012, right? Yep. So he's in my brain, and I'm even doing these kind of workshops with some of these coaches that I had hired to kind of help stimulate and inspire certain writing projects and all those things. So I knew that I always wanted to work with Taylor. He's my number one. And then back in 2016, somebody had said, when I was doing that other show, that Fox show, they're like, he looks like a young Jeremy Renner. Someone had said that, and it was like that seed stuck with me. And I was like, if Jeremy Renner ever does a TV show, I bet I could play his brother. I knew that back then. So I get this script, and it's Taylor Sheridan and Jeremy Renner. And I go, well, how can Jeremy Renner be doing this TV show? Because he's doing Hawkeye. I knew, because I was like, hey, is there a brother role in Hawkeye?
Right.
You know? And so there it was. It was Taylor Sheridan, Jeremy Renner. I go, this is it. This is everything I want to do. This is going to be my last one. I'm going to go for this, because this is the only caliber of people that I want to work with. This is it. I got one shot left.
How'd you prep for this? Did you work with either of your Johns, or did you I would love to know it all, because also you put pressure on yourself like this too. When something comes in like that, when you've been doing it for long enough, my brain can get smart enough to be like, this is mine. And then I could choke it. I could do too much, right? Or I could go too far. It's a fine balance of being like, this is mine. Let me stay open. Let me be prepared enough, and let me trust that I am enough to let everything kind of flow. So if you'll talk us through, even down to the preparation of it, I really do want to hear it.
Well, I'm sure you know this feeling that when you read something and you just like know you're right for it, and the words just flow kind of effortlessly. After so long, you have enough technique to just like know what's going on with this character. And I just felt, you know, especially working with John Markland and like allowing myself to be vulnerable in performances instead of trying to be like the cool guy or some shit like that, which, you know, I got stuck in for like a long time, just trying to like do the really cool stuff, the really calculated, planned out, structured, you know, I'm the cool guy. Like, no, I threw all that shit out, you know, and had for a long time. But especially working with John, he really helped me, just like, dude, like, you are unique. You have this, you know, quality to yourself that nobody else has. Everybody has a quality inside themselves. Do not, you know, deny your quality to come out in your roles, right? So your unique quality. So I actually ended up, I read the audition with my wife, and then it was like, you know, it was like a female voice, and for a male voice, it just I was like, no, it's not right. So I called John, and he read opposite me on Zoom. But it was like a robotic voice, and I was like, I don't know. And I just said, you know what, fuck it, like, let's go, because my performance, I felt very good with my performance and my choices. So a week goes by, and I send it out, and a week goes by, and I'm not hearing anything, and like I'm still kind of entertaining some auditions. I'm just like, I think that was the 12-page audition for like the bad, you know, college coach or something like that. And I call up I'm gonna let you in on something. So like I don't think I've told anybody this. I call up my manager, and I go, what's going on with that audition? Like, what's up with that? And they're like, oh, it's not going any further. And I was like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? They go, yeah, it's not going any further. Casting says you're not right for it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so I remember we had friends over, and it was dinner time, and I just had a complete like meltdown. And I was like on the phone with my manager and my agent going, this is impossible. Like, I know that I did well in the audition. You can't tell me that I don't look like Renner. You know what I mean? You can't tell me I can't play his brother. Like, I want to know, what did Taylor Sheridan see the video and like just not like it? Like, I need to know. I need answers. And for whatever reason, I don't know what happened, but I think there was like it was like a casting assistant or somebody just like pushed my tape aside. And like it didn't even get to the casting director. And so I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I called, I made a huge deal out of it. I was like, you tell them to send that tape to Taylor Sheridan and have him tell me I suck, and I'll fucking quit. Like, do not kill my tape. Don't kill my fucking tape. You know, I don't know who did it. I don't know, whatever. I'm not saying, but I will say that once I got my manager, my agent on it, that casting was gracious enough. I don't know where the communication was, but they did send it forward.
They
that
did send it to
they
you.
did. Then after that conversation, they were like, okay, we re-looked at it, and we're going to send it forward. I don't know if they looked at it at first or whatever. So it was dead. So Kingstown was dead for me. And I made such like
Revived it.
I revived it because I was like, what the actual fuck? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. But again, I was like driven by this force that was like not usually. I would just be like, okay, fine. But like, I was done. I knew I wanted it. I knew I wanted to work with these people. I knew it was mine.
Yes. Yes. And I think there's some faith to when we make sure that we fight for what is ours. I've been doing this podcast since 2009. I can't tell you how many times that people have been passed up on, or wherever the tape gets stuck, or they come in the room, prior, and then 9 months later, they can't find the person. And it's somebody that was like, remember that tape, or remember that person, or somebody shows up, or, not to put certain things on blast, but certain agents and managers might bypass casting sometimes and send it to a producer just to make sure that there's eyes on it, because they are sending hundreds of tapes. Who's to say if the casting assistant started your tape, went to the bathroom, came back and was like, next, like they're doing we're all doing a million things. I'm so glad you fought for this. So then I wonder if you even hear Taylor's other side of it. So he watches the tape. Then what happens?
A week later, like, still hadn't heard anything. I was like, oh boy, this is it. It's over.
You're like, I'm quitting now because he's seen it.
I'm quitting now. Yeah, I haven't heard it. And then I got the call and they were like, Taylor Sheridan pinned you. And I was just like, that's fucking right. That's fucking right. Don't fucking kill him. Like, that's fucking right. Like, I knew it. I was so excited. So, okay, he pinned me. And then like a week goes by, don't hear anything. 2 weeks goes by. I go, okay, what do I do? My manager's like, do a personalized tape. Oh no, they go, Taylor Sheridan wants to see your reel. I go, no. I'm not sending my guest star of Hawaii 5-0 or whatever it is to Taylor Sheridan. Like, I'm not doing that. So I was like, I'm going to do a personalized video. So I did a personalized video. I said, hey, Taylor, my name's, Taylor Handley, blah, blah, blah. I connect with the character because X, Y, and Z. There was all kinds of, things that how I related to the character just personally. Like, this is a world like I know personally. There's like been certain tragedies in my life that, I've had to go through, that this character had gone through. I know all about, prison system, drug addiction, all that stuff. Right. So I just hit him with the authentic truth. And later that was the thing, like because originally the video that I sent, he was like, it's a little too dark. We got Renner's kind of doing the too dark. Like, I need this character to be kind of like the lighthearted. So the casting director showed him my personalized tape and he was like, that's the guy. So it was that personalized message that was kind of like, okay, give him another shot. So I go to John Markland's house and I do the tape with John in person. We send it back. This time it's like 5 weeks, 6 weeks since I had started. Like, everything is on the line here. My wife and I are like at odds. Like, I'm just a miserable, POS, right? And it's Sunday and we're driving up and my wife and I aren't even talking. It's just like, I'm literally going through a death because I'm literally saying to myself, it's over. If this doesn't happen, it's fucking over. And it's Sunday.
Yeah.
And I get a call on my cell phone at like 11. It's my manager. And I'm like, she doesn't call on a Sunday. It's like 11 a.m. I'm in Carpinteria driving up to Santa Barbara. And it's like, Taylor? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, it's Danielle. And then my agent, and Chris. And I'm like, oh, I pull over to the side of the road. They're like, you got it. And I'm just like, I pile out of my car, right? And I'm just crying. And then my wife's like, you got it. My daughter jumps out. I'm literally like on the sidewalk, just like kind of curled over and like just like get dog piled by my family. They're just like, yeah. Like, oh my God, I did it. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. Oh,
What a joy. What a like,
Yeah, thanks for letting me share that. That was
oh
such
my
it's a
gosh.
beautiful
I'm so
moment.
glad you did
Yeah,
because
yeah,
those are the moments that we have to like look when you're down on your knees and you're like, give me something else, God. Or like
yeah,
throw a bone and then you know something so deep in your heart. I think that's where this industry can sometimes be really heartbreaking. It's you're not going to get every role. You're not going to be right for every role, but then when you know that you're right and you have to fight and then you conquer, it's like going to war and coming out the other side
totally.
and having to get everybody to, you're trying to prove something that you inherently know and then to trust yourself every part of the process. You've been doing this for so long to be like, no, make them check it. No, I'm not going to send my reel. No, I'm going to do this. You taking complete and utter ownership over your right and privilege to sit at that and having everything come together so beautifully.
Mm.
What a testament of brick
Thanks.
laying foundation. What a story. Like, yeah, there's no other audition story that's going to trump that.
It's crazy. But it's like I've heard some stories of people like packed up. They're on their way. They're going back to the Midwest. The dreams are done, and they get that phone call and they go, turn around. You got a test, or turn around. You just got picked up. Like, there's something about letting it go. You were like saying strangling, and I say the same thing too. It's like strangling the bunny. Like, I love this bunny so much, but I want it so much. But you're just like, you just you just have to, I don't know, let it settle, which is like the hardest balance to manufacture. It's something that it's like all the molecules and all the things just have to kind of line up perfectly, and you can't manufacture that.
No, you
Right?
can't.
You can't manufacture that in this career.
No. And once you've been doing it long enough, you know when you're trying to manufacture it and you know when you're in the alignment in the pocket. And I just want to speak on trusting that when you're in the alignment in the pocket and you have to know yourself. I think at the end of the day, you doing that X factor, you doing that work, that foundational work allowed you to fight for something that you knew was inherently true. There was no
Yeah.
because we can get a little I do it sometimes with my agent or manager where I'm like, I really want, and I'm like, oh, I really want this, but I'm not having that feeling versus the other times when I'm like, no, I'm having this feeling. So also my teammates know when to trust me when I say, no, no, no. And, it's been like once in the last 10 years where I've gone on the stake and been like, you will make this happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So you have to know when to do that. So I want a lot of younger actors that are hearing this right now too, to know patience, the X factor, and then the push. Patience, the X factor, and also the craft. You were smart enough to not send your reel. You knew not
Yeah.
that your reel's bad. It's not that it's bad. It's great. But that work isn't going to get you to this work.
Mm-mm.
Oh, what a joy. And then we get to work together.
Yes. And then,
And then like not to even switch, I want to switch it into for the last few minutes is when did you start writing, knowing that was it during this X Factor time that you're like, I'm gonna start creating my own shit before the 1 foot out, right? Because you are writing, you are directing, you are producing now, which is even how we kind of came to be on our film, is because you were working on something that you wanted Jeff for. And Jeff was like, well, great. I'll do you a favor. You do me a
Yep.
favor. And now we have this, beautiful film that we hopefully get to see again and it sells. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. I mean, I started writing probably, I mean, I don't know, early on, like '07, '06, '07. I just started going. I didn't know what I would like. Save the Cat was like just my thing. And it was like, writing for me was kind of like learning how to play the guitar. It was kind of like, okay, you learn first position and then bar chords. And then go make some songs, right? So I like read, Save the Cat was that, and then I was able to kind of like to develop my understanding of story structure, and then it's been that way ever since then. But yeah, I mean, I've just been writing this entire time, but recently I decided that I was just going to make something because so many people talk about making stuff, they never do it. And so I just did all the things. Like I had never thought like I wanted to direct before, but I was like, let me give it a shot. Because the thing is I was also getting these scripts for like independent films, and then they would show me the director's reel or director's short film that like is back in it, and I'd be watching these films and nothing to them, but I'd be like, I could do that. Like I just knew like I could direct something. And so if the mathematical equation of me being a writer and a director and a star of something helps me get one of these projects done, then I'm going to do that. I need to have a calling card, so let me gather the troops and let's go make something cool. And so that's what I recently just did.
And how did it change your acting? How did you?
I now know.
Yes.
Okay, I now know because I put that director hat on and I'm in the editing bay and I'm just killing darlings left and right. I'm killing moments, I'm killing entire sequences so that the pace of the story continues. And let me tell you, there's been so much of my performances that have been left on the editing room floor. I'll never forget, I was doing the OC and there was this final scene where I had like this gun to my head and I'm just in tears, right? Just like, Marissa, why don't you love me? Blah, blah, blah. And the director comes out and he goes, check it, the date, send it to the Academy. It's amazing. Like, oh, just like, yes. And then I saw the episode and here I am like this. And you see a quick little shot of me going like this. And then all the rest of the show is just the reactions of the main series regulars. And like none of my performance even made it. Right. So you have to service the story. Actors don't take it personally if you get cut. The directors are just trying to keep pace. And so that was something that I learned. I was like, oh, I don't feel so bad about having gotten cut out of all those things through the years because it just didn't make sense. It didn't service the story.
We can even end right there. Service the story. Even when you're going to audition, even when you think like, God, that was the best audition of my life. Yeah, great acting. It doesn't necessarily fit in the story, right? So that's why I always say selection, not rejection. Because also when I teach now and I see 10 people do the same role, you see where casting or producers or even directors are like, well, I got 10 choices. I got 10 different versions. Which version fits the story? Which puzzle piece is going to be selected to help support my story, the story that I want to tell? So I think sometimes actors need to reverse engineer out of themselves. Like you learn that you've been working for forever. Your learning lesson is like why your great work ends up on the cutting room floor. I think a lot of actors wonder why they're not being selected to do that piece.
Well, I would say that's even more of a reason. It's just like, don't try to do it right. Take a swing. Just take a swing. Mm-hmm. More times than none, the auditions, the self-tapes that I just do my first take and I don't really even know the material or don't even, those are the ones that get chosen, you know?
Well, that's why I always say tape rehearsal. The other day I was on set and they're like, are you comfortable if we just tape the rehearsal? I'm like, yes, please. My best take. Great.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah. We're all discovering in that moment. And I think a lot of actors plan and they forget to discover. We have to discover. And usually that happens on that first take, maybe by the third. I think when I taped True Detective, my tape for True Detective, it was the second take. The one that I fought for last year, it was my first or second take. When I now am in my taping studio and I'm on like the 8th take, I'm like, this isn't mine. Let's just go back to
totally agree. Yeah, I was doing a scene the other day. We're shooting season 3 right now, and it's like, I was probably on like 7 or 8, and it's just like she came out, and the director came out. She's like, yeah, I think we probably got it. Like, I think we got it on the first or second one. It was just like, and I knew it. I'm like, yes, please, let's move on.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. We're human beings. You have good days, you have bad days, you have emotional days. If you can't use it for the story, it's not your piece, somebody else, or thank God when you're on set and you have like a good day, a kind of day, or whatever day, you're a little distracted. It's like, oh, I always say, I'm like, well, this is going to edit together well, right? Okay, next. We would
Yeah. Well, the thing is you've done it long enough. You have enough technique that I'm sure even on like the worst days, as long as you keep connected to the truth and rely on, all your years of experience, like you're not going to have a bad take like at all. And like, so much of like these projects get made in the editing bay. Like it's the story that you write, the story that you shoot, the story that they edit. There's three different stories that come out of it,
Completely. Okay, last question to finish,
Cool.
or double question. Because Taylor was a benchmark for you, Sheridan, because Jeremy was a benchmark for you, what have you learned from each one of those now going into season 3 that is taking you to that next level that I know you're going to bring on to your other projects, that you're going to bring on to the next show that comes after this? What have you picked up?
Well, just seeing Taylor and his entire world that he's created, that's what's inspired me to start expanding my own world, writing, directing, producing. So that's how he's inspired me in that way. And just, his caliber of writing always is just so fantastic. As far as, working with Renner and watching Renner, I'm always learning. And we had a scene, it's going to be in episode 1 where, talk about planning. Like I had planned this scene to be one thing. And then he shows up, he starts doing something completely, not expected. And it was so refreshing. And I jumped on board. I was able to just be there with him, have that, emotional connection between brothers, that we play. And just, I don't know. I'm just, as far as like the technique goes, I'm just learning a lot just on how to elevate the page. Really. I'm just in that mode right now.
Because you were even saying off mic, when I love this too, it's like, Renner can have 5 thoughts in one sentence. Is there anything tangible that you're picking up? I even love that you use that example, because if you're as prepared as you can be, you got to let go, right? And then if him doing something different than you expected, what a great discovery in the moment. I can't wait to see the gift of that scene. But is there anything tangible that you're like, yes, I'm going to do that? I watched Lawrence Fishburne do a couple of things breathwork wise, or how he got pages on the day, little tangible things where I was like, oh, I'm going to do that now. Oh, I can do that. It gave me permission to discover new things, ask for what I needed, step off. His breathwork was incredible. I'd always done breathwork, but to see actually somebody implement it right before a scene was kind of remarkable. So is there anything like that you're starting to put in tangibly?
Yeah, sadly, I wish I knew. Like, I wish I knew that secret, right? I wish I knew that secret. But mostly, what I'm doing when I'm trusting my team. I'm trusting the team that I'm working with. I'm trusting the filmmakers. I was just gonna say, when you were talking about having a plan, I got checked on having a plan this season. Like one of the directors came up to me. He's like, "Hey, I see you have a plan." I see you, and I was like, "Oh, that's not good. You see, I have a plan." He's like, "Come to dinner." He's like, "I see your plan. Sometimes your plan's not working. You need to abandon the plan because you are it. And like, you need to trust us." And so after I had that conversation, it was like, okay, I'm going to just try things and trust my team that, this winning team, that the performance, they're going to be able to craft, hopefully what I'm putting down, like I'm just taking swings. Like that's,
so gave you permission to take swings now.
Taking swings. Like, is it like more times than none, the take that I think is perfect is not perfect at all. It's the take where I'm thinking to myself, I'm blowing this take. This take sucks. And yet I continue to do this take that they're like, great, perfect. Yes, let's move on. And it's like me overthinking how shitty I am is like the extra layer that makes the performance interesting. So
you're like, okay, figure that one out. Or I
yeah,
wonder if it's just this inner monologue that's going, that's almost detached from the world that you're in, that really sometimes even helps. Like I sometimes try to have that inner monologue because even you and I talking right now, I don't know what I'm going to say next, but I might be thinking
right.
something else. Inherently, that's interesting. And sometimes we don't do that with acting, right? If we're planning it, we're not having an
You
inner
only have
monologue.
one little thing going on in your head
Yes, we don't have the
instead of the
juxtaposition of
five.
thoughts. Yes,
Exactly.
you don't have
And
that
that,
juxtaposition.
well, that's what this director was saying to me at the bar. He goes, "Look, this character's going through a bunch of stuff. Like your character's going through a bunch of stuff, but like I'm going through a bunch of stuff personally. You're going through a bunch of stuff personally. Yet we're here at this bar having a nice dinner and laughing.
Mhm.
So a loved one could have died yesterday, but like we're still showing up and like you're able to compartmentalize that as a person. So like don't it was because I was like really trying hard to like carry this like tragedy with me through a couple of these scenes where it wasn't really necessary. Like all I really had to do was just show up and be a human being.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's where the magic is. Also, I think when you've been doing it for so long, you're like, I know what this is. Now when I get auditions, and I look at it and my brain goes, I know what this is. I actually do twice as much work on that inner monologue or the juxtaposition
Good for
because
you.
I know that my brain wants to plan. Then
Mm-hmm.
it's expected. Then it's not going to be fun to watch. It's not going to be fun for me to discover. But that took me 20 years, right? To finally be like, oh, I know, but my ego being like, I know what this is. No, you don't. Do a little bit more. Like discover, have fun with it. Marinate on something else. Find a secret. We inherently lean in when you see something you're thinking, which is I think why when people, at least when you used to go back in the room, when I would mess up in a room, I would get the job because there was
Yeah.
something interesting about them watching me. Or when I tape actors now, or even when I watch myself back, when somebody drops a line, God, it's the best part of the take if they just stay in it, right? Just stay in it and don't go, oh God, I messed up. I'm like, no, we were right there. It was so great. And when
I
you
know.
do something new, also when you get a direction, if you've been memorizing or if you're in your plan, and then the director gives you something new, or I give, another actor something new to play with, you inherently are going to drop your line. Drop a line somewhere because you've been planning it a certain way. Where I'm like, now
Yeah.
no, you're actually a ghost. You don't really hear blah blah blah, and then you see the brain go, "Oh, okay, it's not what I planned." And as soon as they drive, they're so in it, right? That it's not what they planned anymore.
If I
So
stuck to the plan when Renner showed up that day and did something that was completely just like I just would have been left in the dust. You have to be able to like adapt quickly and
quickly,
show up,
quickly.
Yeah,
I mean, I
abandon the
learned.
plan.
Yeah, I mean, Billy did that to me so many times on Morning Rock, and it was such a gift. I had to like a couple of times step out and be like, "Oh, this is great. This is not what I expected him to do at all." Now, how do I recover? How do I just stay present? How do I make this work in this moment? And that was a gift. It's constantly a gift. So I kind of invite that so I'm on my toes.
Well, that's what is fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like that's what's fulfilling. Like that's why we do this. We do
Yes.
that to meet that crossroads of like, of the molecules moving, like, changing between two people when both people are in a scene together and we're really like connected. Like that's what's the fulfilling part of this. Like, do not try to be right about it. Try to just connect and
Mhm.
be truthful. Gosh. I mean,
Be true.
it sounds so simple, but
Sounds
it's like,
so simple, but you can spend a lifetime
it's like
trying to
so
get to
hard
that
talking about
cross.
acting. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. Be truthful. Stay connected. Yeah. No shit. Wow.
This was such a joy. And I have to say, what a joy. I mean, to meet you on Morning Rock. Our paths almost crossed a few different times in a few different projects, but I'll never forget the table read. It's one thing to read a script. And like we were saying earlier, when you come to an independent film, now you as a writer too and as a director, you hire on actors, you hire on a whole team to bring what's on the page and elevate it. And sitting next to you at the table read and having thoughts of what I thought Gibson was, what the character was going to be, and then listening to you inhabit it, I was like, damn, oh, this is going to be a good movie. That was literally at the table read. And I'm excited to see how it comes together. And regardless, there was moments of that crossing point that happened for me on Morning Rock, and I'm really excited.
Well, I'm gonna say something about you too, because when we watched the movie together at Jeff's, I was just stoked to see and inspired at how grounded you were able to keep that character and how truthful that you were able to, because there was so many traps, and there was a lot of traps for that character to, like, you know, to go kind of south, but you just held this beautiful line, and it was such a beautiful performance of a woman who is, you know, grieving the loss of her son. I mean, it is, I mean, take notes for sure. When people watch this, take notes. Yeah, it is fantastic. I told you that too, but I just had to say it on here because you absolutely crushed it. So
thank you.
Such a pleasure.
It was a joy to work, and I'm trying to invite myself on the mayor of Kingstown every single season. I took so many swings at bat for that first season, and I'm so grateful to see who landed the jobs. But that is a universe. Taylor builds universes and worlds in which, same thing. I was close on Yellowstone. I'm like knocking on that door, and after hearing this story, it's when you hear stories like this, you're like, maybe I should have made sure they saw it. You know, like you never know. But you know when there's the right ones to fight for. So thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, no.
Thank you for having me.
Where can everybody follow you other than watching all of the lovely, amazing things? Obviously, Mayor of Kingstown, but are you on social? You're on social. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Taylor Handley on Instagram.
Mister.
There's some other Taylor Handley who took it. What do you do?
Mister, I mean, it demands. I like it's sophisticated. Huh?
That's how I got that. There's a dude from, what's his name? Is his name Jake Johnson?
Yes.
He has. I think he was Mr. Jake Johnson. I was like, I like his style. I'll take Mr. Taylor Handley.
Yes. Yes.
If he does, I can.
You can totally do it. Thank you for doing this.